April is the cruelest month, breeding lilacs out of the dead land, mixing memory and desire, stirring dull roots with spring rain. Winter kept us warm, covering earth in forgetful snow, feeding a little life with dried tubers. Summer surprised us, coming over the Starnbergese with a shower of rain. We stopped in the colonnade, and we went on in sunlight into the Hofgarten and drank coffee and talked for an hour. Here's some, I think, languages that I can't speak,
It's
so
German,
we're going to stop right there.
Bin gar kein Russen, stamm aus Luen, echt Deutsch. That's about as close to the German pronunciation as I can get.
And when we were children, staying at the Archduke's, my cousins, he took me out on a sled and I was frightened. He said, Marie, Marie, hold on tight. And down we went. In the mountains where you feel free. I read much of the night and go south in winter. Yeah, so this is a very happy poem about happy stuff. And,
about blooming flowers, which, should put everybody in good mood.
And a nice man wrote it.
I love chilling with my cousin, the Archduke. I hope he never gets assassinated. Welcome back to Workers Lit. Lenore is unfortunately on what let's say, I don't know, relevant, a sledding trip. I don't know, something that's
with the Archduke. Yeah,
Lenore is drowning with the Phoenician, but it's okay. We've got me and Aisha, and we have a guest. Welcome to the show, Chris Richard, aka the Eclectic Radical. Your show is described as the most independent show in independent media, bringing you news, opinions, and cultural discussions to fight against capitalism in our hyper-capitalist age. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Well, thank you for having me. It's definitely a pleasure to be here and talk about happy, cheerful subjects like T.S. Eliot and the Wasteland.
It's the time for it. Well, Chris, before we get into this, you want to tell folks about what you do over at the Eclectic Radical?
Well, I run an alternative to Sunday morning news shows where I try to talk to people about topics and news that matters more than some of what we get on the Sunday morning shows, or at least talk about what's happening on the Sunday morning shows in a sense of, oh my God, we're all going to die, instead of the more ho-hum way that the news covers it.
Yeah, you go live on like YouTube and Substack, don't you?
I go live on YouTube on Sunday mornings, and I try to have the recording posted out to Substack every week. I'm a bit behind on that. That's my fault.
Well, good shit. Well, folks, if you want an alternative to your Sunday morning shows, it is crazy sometimes. You'll turn on the Sunday morning show and like they'll be talking about this stuff, but it's like the dissonance, especially since the whites take over at CBS, is just crazy.
I'm going to be real, Jacob. I have never turned on a Sunday morning show.
I am the sort of person who when I was first developing a following, one of the things I was doing that seemed to really work and that I may need to get back to again is just critically tweeting the news. Yeah. I did morning the way people live tweet a movie or a TV show or a presidential debate, just critically tweeting the news. This is what they're saying. Here's why it's full of shit.
No, it's super cool because I like to see, fantasy media, and I'm like, if I had the One Ring, I would easily resist it. And then there's like morning news, and I'm like, I'm gonna fry my brain with this. I would fall to the One Ring.
I would diminish and go into the West, actually.
God.
What I actually strongly recommend for anyone who can do it is to watch something like Morning Joe or Meet the Press critically. From the point of view of thinking, this is a bunch of insiders sitting around a table talking about insider stuff. And this doesn't tell me anything relevant to my life, but it does tell me about them.
Well, something that's, I think, somewhat relevant to our lives. At least it's going to be if you're listening to this episode for the next hour. Is T.S. Eliot in the Wasteland? See, that's a segue.
You did it. You killed it.
Yes. Aisha, Chris, what are y'all's experiences with T.S. Eliot and the Wasteland? Aside from, just like being in the world and like hearing quotes from it.
Well, the sad thing is as T.S. Eliot's poetry goes, I'm really more of a Cats person.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I'm interested in the Wasteland because of the symbolism of the title, almost more than anything else. In Arthurian mythology, there is a mythical kingdom where rests the Holy Grail somewhere between England and Wales, and a knight named Sir Balin finds it hunting an invisible assassin, a wicked knight named Sir Garland who rides invisibly and therefore murders any good knight he wishes. Very dramatic stuff. And in the castle, he meets the king, whose name is Pelles, and he sees the spear that wounded Christ. And he also catches the guy he's after and kills him, only he's both the king's guest and the king's brother. So now the king is pissed at him.
Right.
So in a moment of self-defense, Sir Balin grabs up the spear that wounded Christ and stabs King Pelles right through the gonads. And this injury is so severe that the Holy Grail disappears from the castle. And King Pelles' kingdom is laid waste. The literal wasteland that the poem represents, because Balin screwed up so badly, even though he was trying to do the right thing. And he basically speared the keeper of the blood of Christ through the holy testicles and cut off the flow of magic sacraments. Let's just leave it there and not get too much weirder.
And
But
and if you think that reference is enough references, trust me, there's not. It's just references and just so much stuff, but it creates a wasteland, right? And it's interesting. I'll get into it, but like the title was chosen very late too, and it is a reference to that story. God, so many stories referenced here.
And lots of people know about the end of the Holy Grail story and Galahad finding the Grail and bringing it back. But the whole reason Arthur's knights have to look for the Grail in the first place is because one of Arthur's knights is responsible for this whole shit and created the wasteland in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Well, Aisha, what's your history with T.S. Eliot and the Wasteland?
So I took a poetry class in college, and I read a lot of like the Western canon poetry, and we read this poem, and I was very struck by it. Although my favorite Eliot poem is the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock, but that's way shorter. So I didn't think that would be good for, a podcast where we talk about a poem for a long time. Although there's a lot in Prufrock. Sure. But it's also way more straightforward. It's about aging. And this is about a lot of things. Also, like,
aging does figure into this too, though. There's a lot of I'm getting older that I can't help but notice because I've also been reading Seneca lately, and
for real.
There's a lot of I'm getting older in that too.
Also, I was like, I feel like we should do a poem because poems are shorter. And when you asked me what I wanted to do next, we were reading LA Confidential. And I was like, if I have to read another book ever, I'm going to fucking kill myself.
LA Confidential is such a great book for the suicidal, though. I mean, you have to
for sure.
Kill yourself because of a book. That's the one to do it.
Definitely. Well, yeah, with me, pretty standard, English courses that I took in college. Read Wasteland not once but twice across my college for 2 different classes. It's definitely a classic modernist poem. T.S. Eliot as a guy that we didn't get into him nearly as much, but I got into him researching him for this podcast, and now y'all are gonna know all about him. Thomas Stearns Eliot. Eliot with 1 L, by the way. That trips me up. Mm-hmm. Just one Eliot.
Spelling.
You only need one.
You only need one. He was born as the youngest of 6 children in 1888 to an upper-class St. Louis family with deep roots in academia, business, and culture. His grandfather was William Greenleaf Eliot, the Unitarian minister who founded Washington University and the St. Louis Art Museum. His father, Henry Ware Eliot, was president and treasurer of Hydraulic Press Brick Company. I love how they named companies back then. They just said what
St.
they did.
Louis.
Yeah.
See, now this is the big. This is where even I learned something, and I pride myself on knowing a little bit about everything. But
Yeah.
this is me. This is me being the dumb American who now gets to act surprised that T.S. Eliot isn't a Brit.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
no,
the
he's
he
American.
became a Brit. Yeah, he converted
Yes.
to Britishism.
Yes.
Yeah.
He fled. He fled the U.S. the same way his dear buddy Ezra Pound did, and ended up in the U.K. instead of fascist Italy, which
Yeah.
I suppose worked out better for him.
Yeah. Well, he was born very much with an economic silver spoon, but suffered from a double hernia of the groin as a child. And late 1800s, not a great thing to have at any point, but
Yeah, you don't
certainly,
even want a single hernia of the groin
Yeah.
in the 1800s.
because there's not a lot you can do about it. And
But
he dealt with a lot of pain. I mean, it was
the good
bad.
news. The good news is successful hernia surgery does go all the way back to like classical Greece.
They were able to finally get rid of it, but it was a years long struggle for
Yes.
him.
The bad news is it has advanced a lot since
Yeah.
the Victorian period.
His biography says he saw books as the drug of dreams against the pain of living, which is very dramatic, but there you go.
He's a poet.
Yeah.
But I mean, hey, dramatic language, but isn't that really what they are and how we all use them?
That's
at least
what we're
at
here
one
for.
stage in our life.
Well, he was highly influenced by, in his youth, Mark Twain and Edward Fitzgerald. He studied Latin and Greek. He was a fancy lad and started writing poetry in his early teens, most of which he destroyed. He also got very interested in U.S. indigenous peoples' history. Then he went to Harvard. That's where he went through his master's, where he met Schofield Thayer, his poet and lifelong friend, the guy who had published The Wasteland. He also met Conrad Aiken. And that's important because Aiken, a lot of his letters with Aiken are how we know a lot of his takes at different times in life. And he also got really into Tristan Corbière around here, the so-called cursed poet, and, interested in French literature. His letters to Aiken are super important. Like I said, my favorite quote from them, because I read a bunch of Aiken letters, are a random one where he says, quote, "I am very dependent on women," end quote.
Girl, same. Girl, listen. Listen.
So,
back in the days when men could just openly admit that.
Yeah. They're too ashamed now. They're like, they want to be like a manly man. T.S. Eliot did not want to be a manly man. He was a fancy lad through and through. He could admit he loved women. So next he went to the University of Paris. He studied philosophy, where he read the French symbolists. They were very much the vanguard of the modernist movement, which he would of course be at the core of. Then he went back to Harvard for 3 years to study Indian philosophy and Sanskrit. You can see heavily his influence on that in The Wasteland. And another part of modernism is that cross-cultural.
You say he was interested in Indian poetry and literature, and I remember that I mentioned he was friends with Ezra Pound. Curious or
Yeah. Yeah, it's that cross-cultural pollination is that part of modernism where you have the first, it's still very colonial, but with like a more interest to wisdom in foreign lands. You kind of have this early, like, okay, maybe they are onto something. It's still very racist. It's still very colonial.
Also,
but
because of modernism, I have to mention that this is just a few years after the beginning of really exciting interest in Aryanism in the UK and Germany.
Oh yeah,
and,
we'll get there.
Interest in Indian and Sanskrit poetry was very much seen as interest in the roots of the noble race.
Yes.
Not to be a downer or anything.
Yeah, unfortunately, this wasn't like, hey, like let's learn from each other. No, it's more like,
let's read the Upanishads.
Yeah, it's like, hey, what's that symbol? Unfortunately.
Yeah.
So at this point he goes to Germany with plans to study there, but World War I breaks out, so he gets the fuck out of Dodge. He gets to Oxford and he studies there. He hates Oxford, does not like it. I read a letter he wrote at this period where he says, I don't like the university life, which like could have fooled me because he's gone to like 6 colleges at this point. But fancy lad doesn't know what to do.
And
But
just
he
to be
meets
just to be
Ezra.
fair to the man in his era, or unfair as the case may be, we should note that he left Europe because of World War One, whereas J.R.R. Tolkien only visited Europe because of World War One. Very different
Sure.
circumstance.
Well, visited Germany, yeah.
Well, no, I'm specifically making a joke about the fact that Tolkien served and suffered a great deal
Oh
of
yeah, Battle of the Somme.
trauma that went into the creation of Mordor.
Oh yeah, another wasteland, as it were.
Yeah.
In London, he meets Ezra Pound, already pretty relevant at this point. They would be lifelong friends and work together on a lot of things, including this. He returns to Oxford briefly and does his doctoral dissertation, but get this, he doesn't show up for his defense of his dissertation, so he doesn't actually get it. He does
Oh
the
my
whole
God.
thing, but he doesn't show for his defense. Interesting. In 1915, he marries Vivian Highwood and moves. And he full time, he says, I'm now moved to England full time to be with her. She was an opium addict. He was an alcoholic. They were both having an awful time. Their friends said consistently, like, I'll hang out with one or of the other of you, but not both of you at the same time. You're hell on earth together. She very probably cheated on him with Bertrand Russell.
Incredible.
And they separated in 1933. They actually never legally divorced. She would die in an insane asylum.
Oh my God.
So pretty gnarly
So now,
story.
as a more interesting random stream of consciousness connection, around the same time that between World War One and World War Two, Bertrand Russell wrote his "Why I Am a Socialist."
Yes. Yeah, sure did.
Which is a sort of very different thinking from what we associate with Ezra Pound. And it's just interesting that Ezra Pound's best friend's wife had an affair with Bertrand Russell under those circumstances.
It's one of those things where, like, we don't have the document that said I slept with him, but we have basically everything around that.
We don't have the document that says that Martin Van Buren's best friend was really his boyfriend, but they were buried together.
Yes, that's true. So he teaches, he lectures, he writes, he helps bank where he schmoozes, he makes friends and frenemies with people like James Joyce, who he hated at first, then came to regard. He then came to regard him as literature's greatest genius. In 1925, he lands a job as the director of the publishing house Faber and Faber, which is, of course, still around today. And from both the writing end and the editorial end, he's helping along the modernist movement. We think of him, his writings are modernist, but also at Faber and Faber, he is publishing and discovering people who are very much the building blocks of this movement.
And he was publishing people who might not otherwise have been published at a time where modernism was not as popular in some circles as others.
And as in relevance to that, in 1915, he had published his first poem, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, which was met with mixed reviews, but a lot of reviews, that's the thing. A lot of people didn't like it, but they were reading it. Aisha, you'll like this. We were talking about reviews earlier. My favorite review was from the Times that said, quote, this must be the thought process of Eliot. I'll just put down the first thing that comes into my head and call it the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock, end quote. Which is wrong, but hilarious.
This sounds more and more like some side story from a 90s Sandman comic book.
Oh yeah. In 1917, he publishes his first collection, and then The Wasteland is published in 1922. Dedicated to Ezra Pound, as we said. Eliot is very much engaging with his own misery in his marriage here, engaging with, of course, the aftermath of World War I. No matter what he says it was about, it definitely was. And a lot of other things that we will discuss. But to just sort of finish this up, he published The Wasteland along with The Hollow Men in the collection Poems, 1909 to 1925. And I respect the hell out of this. For the rest of his life, he basically just kept releasing the same book with a few more poems in it every few years, which is a great business model. The exception is Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats, in 1939.
Which is my favorite.
As we know.
Listeners, for those of you who don't know, he wrote the book that Cats the musical is based on.
Mm-hmm.
And Andrew Lloyd Webber really enjoyed it, and the rest is history.
Yeah, and he was the only one.
That's the funny thing, is that, and it makes perfect sense. It was something that he wrote because these were poems that he wrote to be read to the child of a friend.
Yeah.
So it's the sort of thing that he was talked into publishing, because if he put his name on it, they would publish it and he would make some money. Right. But it was really something that this was a personal thing. I'm writing this so that my friend will have something to read to their kid at bedtime.
Well, Old Possum was also his nickname too, is where that comes from. Nickname Pound gave him. Just so in 1927, he renounces his American citizenship and joins the Church of England and the Society of King Charles the Martyr. Fucking insane.
I was going to say, okay, based to renounce your American citizenship, less based to then go to a worse place.
Yeah, especially at this point.
Conservative monarchism was all the rage in the 1920s.
That's the funny thing, is he's constantly in his letters saying no one's a true conservative except for me anymore, which we hear that to this day.
We do.
This quote, he says, when he describes himself, he says, "I am a man with a Catholic cast of mind, a Calvinist heritage, and a puritanical temperament. I am an Englishman till death." I'm like, you sound like the most annoying person to have a conversation with.
I mean, the only person who could tolerate him was Ezra Pound, so.
He was a royalist, self-identified as an ineradicable Tory. He complained through his life that everyone was a socialist and that conservatives were oppressed in the 1920s.
It's true.
He flirted with fascism.
He really was scarred by that thing between his wife and Bertrand Russell.
Must have
really
been.
Held it against the rest of us.
He flirted with fascism. He decided to not identify as a fascist because he said he found fascism, quote, dull, which is not a very good reason to not like fascism. You should not like it because of what it is, not because it bores you.
In his defense, when he was saying he found fascism dull, he was saying I find fascism stupid rather than I find fascism boring.
Well, and also I think he was tired of he was tired of talking about it with Ezra Pound. He was like, can we talk about anything else? He was extremely anti-Semitic, openly said democracy was not a good thing. He said there had not been a good politician in the world since Charles I of England, which is insane because that's that's the guy who got his own head chopped off under his country's constitution.
I mean, he was quite clearly a bad politician,
yeah.
Because whether you support him or not, he lost, and in very distressing personal circumstances due to repeated mistakes that he made. Yeah. He also repeatedly sold his best friends out under the bus and cut their heads off. And they still cut his head off in the end, no matter how many of his friends he sacrificed.
Yeah.
Chris.
My dude was literally not a good politician. Yeah.
He literally made his best friend the Archbishop of Canterbury, and it's like, dude, I need you to help me save the church from Protestantism. And then when it made everybody mad, this is a Protestant country. He's like, okay, cut my friend's head off. It's his fault. It's like,
Chris,
dude.
You say that, but what if Charles was playing the long game? He's playing it in centuries. We still haven't seen.
He's doing 5D chess.
Yeah, Charles's plan still hasn't paid off.
If you want to give Charles the First sort of credit in the end for his son's success, I suppose you could. But ultimately, I think the only thing that convinced the English to ask Charles II back as king was, Cromwell.
Yep. I think the best thing Charles ever did was get his head.
If we're going to be ruled by a tyrant anyway, we need to reopen the theaters and dance halls.
Yes.
I agree.
And Charles will do that.
Well, he wrote T.S. Eliot also wrote an essay where he talks about this stuff called The Idea of a Christian Society. I cannot recommend you read it less, but I did read it. he has a quote in there where he talks about his artistic theory, where he says, "You cannot expect continuity and coherence in literature and the arts unless you have a certain uniformity of culture expressed in education by a settled, though not rigid, agreement as to what everyone should know, and a positive distinction, however undemocratic this may sound, between the educated and uneducated in society." So, I mean, he's pretty
Another
clear.
Russell connection.
Yeah, he's
Why I Am Not a Christian, dedicated to T.S. Eliot, apparently.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm fucking that guy's wife. That's why.
Yeah. From 1933 to 1946, Eliot was close friends with Emily Hale, to who he wrote thousands of letters, which were sealed away in an archive at Eliot's request until 2020. They didn't come out until 2020.
Were they at least worth being sealed away, or do we not know?
We know. They're mostly lovey-dovey stuff. She wrote him.
Well, that's what I figured when he wanted him sealed away.
She wrote him a lot too, but he, on a whim, burned them into a fit of rage at one point. Hundreds and hundreds of letters.
These whimsical men.
So, when he learned about her letters, he wrote Harvard a letter himself, demanding that when the letters released in 2020, they release a letter giving his account of the relationship too, even though the letters they were publishing were just the letters he had written. I did not get into the love back and forth thing. I thought, honestly, just the mass burning of letters thing was hilarious, though. I had to include that.
That was supposedly that was a thing that was done. You burned your letters to keep them to keep them secret if they would be considered scandalous.
I think he was just mad, though.
Well, yeah, probably, but at the same time, it was you burned the letters from your lover specifically to keep her out of trouble too. So if he actually burned them, that means that as pissed as he was, he didn't want her to get in trouble. Even if everyone knew about it, because we're talking about it, burning them or not.
Well, unfortunately, he did not fully respect women all his life. At age 68 in 1967, he married his secretary, who was quite much less than half his age, and made her keep it a secret from everyone. So that was probably not good behavior. And yeah, his like what's considered his last really great contribution is, even though he wrote other stuff that was good after this, but his last, like, considered his big thing is the 4 quartets, 4 poems, each associated with a classic element. He sees this as his masterwork. I got to say, Little Gidding, it's about him being in the Blitz as a raid marshal and meeting Dante amidst the flames. That shit rules. I just gotta hand it to him. It's good.
Yeah.
Anyway, he dies at age 77 in London. We still read him today. And that's the guy.
Wow. What a specific type of guy.
Very specific. Very specific.
Yeah,
Incredible.
No doubt.
I mean, he seems like he would actually fit into the Silicon Valley tech right social circle with Gary Tan and Curtis Yarvin.
Oh God.
I hate to say it.
Curtis Yarvin. Now there's a pervert.
Curtis Yarvin and T.S. Eliot would be like, man, how did we not meet before?
Yeah.
Well, they can meet in hell.
Yeah. T.S. Eliot says, "I'm rather dependent on women," and then Curtis Yarvin won't talk to him anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
that's where they divide.
Now, you can't admit that, dude.
So that's the guy. But the poem, I mean, I sure read the opening of it, and the thing is, the poem it's long for a poem. It's not long for a work we cover on the show. So people, honestly, like, if you've got a spare hour, not even, go read it.
Yeah, like, you've got to spare 20 minutes if you have a lunch break.
Yeah,
it's not quite as long as some of the meteor epics, but it's definitely longer than what a lot of us tend to read, especially if you're an American poet who's used to, like, Updike in this paragraph. An American reader of poetry is used to a paragraph from Updike,
and then
you're not necessarily used to the something as meaty as the Wasteland.
Definitely. Well, did y'all know what the original name of this poem was until like a few weeks before release?
Mm-mm.
Either of y'all know
April is gloomy.
Nope. It was a reference to a Charles Dickens novel, and the quote, it was called "He Do the Police in Different Voices."
What?
He Do the Police in Different Voices was the name until a few weeks before it was
Now,
released. Now that's a reference to a Dickens
now
novel where
there's an excellent Saturday Night Live skit in this, if I can just write it.
yeah. It's basically it's from our mutual friend. Basically there's a character named Betty who praises her kid, who says he's a very good reader. He reads me the newspaper. He do the police in different voices, basically saying like he's a good reader.
Yeah,
And he's
I
like,
can picture that now.
it's kind of a strange thing. I don't know why Eliot went with that. The Wasteland is a far better name.
Yeah, what the fuck?
He
I
almost
would tell you
referenced-
this poem would not be as famous as it is if it was called "He Do the Police in Different Voices."
I thought I was like misreading when I first saw that. I'm like, he almost referenced Too Close to the Sun with this one. Like he really did.
I feel like that. Like I literally thought I was having a stroke when you said it. It sounds like something that like if you were reading it, you'd be like, "Oh, somebody hacked this. This is not real. This was a Wikipedia battle, like people editing a Wikipedia page."
So I read everything from T.S. Eliot to cheesy 80s and 90s crime fiction. And one of the great authors of cheesy 80s and 90s crime fiction was a man named Robert B. Parker, whose titles were almost always some literary reference. So he has a book called The Widening Gyre.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Which of course is a very obvious reference.
Right.
And then he's got other much less obvious references in other titles. And that's what jumped into my head when I found out T.S. Eliot was going to name this poem after Dickens reference.
Yeah, he's the guy who did books like what? He did like God Save the Child, some of that, I believe.
Yes,
Parker
that's
did.
the one. God Save the Child. They made a TV series with Robert Urich out of his book Spencer for Hire.
Yeah.
The only good thing about that is the wonderful performance of Avery Brooks, later to be famous for DS9.
Well, I will say that I would say we would do an episode on him, but we will never be doing 90s crime fiction ever again.
God damn it.
It's actually funny because it starts as 70s crime fiction. He starts writing in the late 60s, early 70s, but his stuff keeps going out of commercial success into the 80s and 90s. And when he died in the early 21st century, his family could not live without his income.
Damn.
And so hired another crime writer to continue his books.
Well,
may we all be that successfar.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into the poem. Aisha, what are you thinking about the beginning? You read it at the top. What are our thoughts? Because this is set into five sections, and the first section is called "The Burial
of the Dead." Yeah.
Reference to the English Book of Common Prayer there.
April is the cruelest month is like a very people who don't know that it's from the Wasteland probably know.
It's the one line of this poem everyone knows, and a lot of people who know the line don't even know it's from this poem.
Yeah.
That's like that line is his contribution to the English language.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the stuff about the famous clairvoyant, where he talks about
I like how the dead Phoenician sailor is a throwaway line once, and he keeps coming back to the dude.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Also, like a bunch of tarot cards that don't exist.
Yes.
Yes.
The thing about the Burial of the Dead, this section is the whole thing is, but especially this one is having so many different voices speaking. And Eliot says the phrase in the second stanza, "heap of broken images," and that really is what this whole poem is. I mean, like. And Eliot had not long before this begun writing his review of Ulysses, where he was like, James Joyce's interfacing with myth is like the model for us all to follow. He calls it an invention close to Einstein, which is, I don't know if that's true, but still pretty cool. And he said himself, he's the one who said, T.S. Eliot, immature poets imitate, mature poets steal. So something he's doing here is really trying to pull from like that Ulysses model of like, I'm just going to reference a bunch of myths. I'm going to recontextualize it. I'm going to put Dante's hell in London. But it is moving so quickly that it is very hard to keep up with a lot of the time. But the most iconic lines are all in this first section. Both April is the cruelest month, and I will also say, I will show you fear in a handful of dust, which goes really fucking hard.
Yeah.
That's the other one that people know.
There is a shadow under this red rock. Come in here under the shadow of this red rock, and I will show you something different from either your shadow at morning striding behind you or your shadow at evening rising to meet you. I will show you fear in a handful of dust.
If somebody says that to you, you probably want to run.
Yeah, that sounds like actually like something an anime villain is going to say to you before they beat your ass.
Not to accuse geniuses, not to accuse mature artists of swiping, but a lot of the original manga artists are really, really, really well read in the Western canon.
Oh, no doubt.
Like there's a manga that ended up, I believe, becoming an anime that's about Vikings in exile from England starting a colony in Canada.
Vinland Saga, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I hate that I knew that.
What's hilarious is it's supposed to be spoilers. Sorry, spoiler alert. This is where someone should edit something if necessary. But if the whole idea is, well, we want to build this place where we can tolerate the races, and then they have to leave because they can't get along with the locals.
Yeah. Well, let me see. I've gotten so many notes on this. I mean, like, and the thing is, we're not going to be able to go through everything, but like even the opening line I wanted to reference is immediately a direct subversion of Chaucer's lines on April and the Canterbury Tales, right? And it's like you could go through this whole thing, and people have, and pull out all the references. It's there's so much. One thing I wanted to pull right here is, and you read it at the top, Aisha, we get Mary Larish reflecting on her youth and sledding. And this is someone who bore witness to the Meyerling incident, a murder-suicide that led to the Habsburg succession issues and led to Archduke Franz Ferdinand becoming heir. So like right here, we've got Eliot tried to say later on, he was like, oh, I wasn't doing any World War I references. Well, what the fuck was that, right? Like, obviously.
I mean, it's impossible to live then and not do World War I references. It's like how everything now is about 9/11.
Right.
Like, it's impossible. Yeah. Everything's about, what is it? The Kill James Bond bit. Every movie is about being transgender or 9/11.
There's one or the other. The first American edition of The Lord of the Rings includes a foreword by J.R.R. Tolkien, in which he's very upset that people had took The Lord of the Rings to be about World War II when it was supposed to be about World War I.
Yeah. Tolkien was always yelling at people to interpret his books correctly. Love that for him.
Yeah, good for him.
What do we make of the Hyacinth girl? What's going on with this chick? She's like, they call me
Hyacinth girl?
Yeah, Hyacinth girl.
Hyacinth
girl, yeah. So
I can't talk. My bad.
I'm like,
he's got this thing going on in this whole part of the poem about hell in London, about how flowers are actually this horrible, scary monster that lives off things that are dying. And so the Hyacinth girl is this reference, like the lilacs coming from the dead ground in April. It's this reference to this predatory growth that seems like a pretty beautiful thing, but is really representative of something that feeds on death.
Also, what do we bring when people die? Flowers.
Flowers.
And flowers die so quickly. So you just then have this other dead thing.
Hyacinths and orchids and several other tropical flowers actually do persist on the chemicals that dead animals put in the soil.
Right. Well, I mean, also there are things like there are flowers that you don't want to put these flowers with other flowers because they will make those flowers rot faster.
Yes.
The line is funny to me. You gave me hyacinths first a year ago. They called me the Hyacinth girl. That for some reason was funny. Like, it's just, there's some humor there.
I mean, he just has some turns of phrase where he repeats lines and they're either funny or they're or they're like, I don't know how to like, like there is a shadow under this red rock. Come in under the shadow of this red rock. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
I also think that, I mean, just the sheer amount of Hamlet references we get eventually, anything with flowers, he's going to be thinking about Ophelia a little bit. Then, Aisha, you mentioned what? Madame Sosostris?
yeah,
Sosostris?
Madame Sosostris, famous clairvoyant, had a bad cold. Nevertheless, is known to be the wisest woman in Europe, with a wicked pack of cards.
There
she
is no
sounds
drowned Phoenician sailor. There is no Belladonna, Lady of the Rocks. Those are made up cards.
They
Yeah.
The
were.
one that's real is the Hanged Man. Which
Yeah,
he
and
says
the wheel too, the Wheel of Fortune.
Yes. Yes.
Well, what's interesting is apparently the same year, Aldous Huxley had a novel called Chrome Yellow, which longtime listeners to the show will know our first ever episode was on Aldous Huxley. Really long-time listeners to the show, very echoey that episode. And Chrome Yellow has a character by this same name who is a cross-dressing scam artist who goes in like, and he's like cross-dressing as this madame who says, I can read your fortune, and steals from people. And it's interesting because later on we get into Tiresias, and Tiresias is the blind seer who can change sexes. And so like there is some probably shared DNA going on between these characters, though like what exactly is going on in Eliot's mind, it's hard to know for sure, but like it doesn't seem super accidental. A lot of things come back. Like you said, Aisha, this character's throwing out tarot cards that don't exist, but like one of them is about a drowned sailor who is absolutely going to show up in a few pages. So
yeah,
something's up.
Yeah. And then there's part 2, a game of chess, which is my favorite part because it's so like awful. Like it's like an argument that a couple is having, kind of.
Right. Like it starts with this like very elegant scene of this like very nice situation, and then it immediately switches to what feels like a working class bar, and then this fight that's happening in it. And it's like, I think it's called a game of chess. Well, actually, why do y'all think it's called a game of chess? I have a guess, but maybe I'm wrong.
Chess is very much about a war.
Sure.
And it's considered by people who play it competitively as being a struggle for dominance.
And strategy, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, not just that. It's like there is nobody as pathological as famous chess players.
That's true.
If you've ever seen Garry Kasparov, who's a perfect example, posture in the news, pretending to be the last honest Russian.
Yeah.
Sure.
This is that sort of people. These great chess players actually write things in books where they say chess is a struggle for dominance where you seek to crush the other's ego.
Yeah.
Well, that's Bobby Fischer who said that.
Yeah.
Have y'all ever seen that video of the kid who's really good at chess, like a chess prodigy, and then they bring out Kasparov to play him, and the kid starts crying? It's one of the craziest videos. It's like from like Russian TV. It's fucking crazy. If you haven't seen it,
they go crazy over there in Russia. They're on some shit over there.
They put the edit I've seen of it puts like Dark Souls boss music over it. It's
the best example of what I'm thinking of that I can talk about is the absolute awfulness that the main character of Searching for Bobby Fischer goes through. If you've ever seen that movie,
I've not.
Where he's actually chastised for being kind to a younger chess player at one point because no, you don't understand. You can't ever give anybody any kind of advantage like that.
And chess was huge in Eliot circles, of course, you know, the Oxford people. And I think one thing that's happened, it's like two levels, right? There's the argument that we'll talk about in a second that I should reference. And there's also the beginning with this like first few stanzas of this like great wealth that they're describing, this gilded throne. And then immediately we're into this like working class bar where you've just got a bartender yelling, you got to get out of here. And I think there's like a game of chess happening like class wise as well.
Yeah. What is it? My nerves are bad tonight. Yes, bad. Stay with me. Speak to me. Why do you never speak? Speak. What are you thinking? What thinking? What? I never know what you were thinking. Think. I think we are in Rat's Alley where the dead men lost their bones. It's like, come on, man, what is going on?
Yep. And you have this working class bar where they're fighting and they're having a discussion that in Eliot's mind would be highly scandalous because they're talking about sex and abortion. And the section starts with, it says, "Ooh, that Shakespearean rag." And I was like, what the fuck does this mean? So I had to look into it. That's a direct reference to a fun bar song that was like popular around the time that Eliot hated because
That's
Eliot
so funny.
found it distasteful that you would take Shakespeare and make a bar song out of it. He said that represented the degeneration of culture and the rise of liberalism. Because
That's literally British culture. That's what you like, bud.
This is where I have to step up and say, dude, Shakespeare was an actor,
right,
who traveled around the country trying to make an acting company money.
Right.
Also, all his plays are about fucking.
Yeah, jokes. Like,
or killing people.
It's all dick jokes and men dressing up as women.
Right. Like Shakespeare would love bar songs being written about.
Like Shakespeare is lowbrow. Like I know that this is like that's like pretty passe to say now, but like it was not high culture. It was lowbrow culture.
Much Ado About Nothing, which became this very highbrow costume drama in the Hollywood era, is this body series of sex jokes.
Yeah.
Do you know the pun in the name Much Ado About Nothing? It's crazy.
No, tell us.
A lot of people don't know this. I didn't know this until like a month ago. I had to look into it. Apparently, when they did the original performance of it, the actors would say much ado about, and they would pronounce it O thing, and it was a vagina reference.
Oh, that's incredible.
Also,
like what?
Yeah. There's also the thing.
O thing is crazy.
There's another joke in that people would have a book of nothing.
Yes.
Where they write down all their secrets and who they're in love with and stuff like. And one of the subplots is the bad guy exposes the heroine's diary to the rest of the characters. So Much Ado About Nothing is also a joke reference to her diary.
There's a lot going on.
The whole back and forth flirtation between Beatrice and Benedict, who appear to be quietly having all the sex everybody thinks that the girl who allegedly kills herself is having, but are covering it up by pretending to hate each other.
Much Ado About O thing.
Yeah, Much Ado About Pussy. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So shut up, T.S. Eliot, you old bitch.
I really like. I'm a really big fan of the bartender. Keeps on going. Hurry up, please! It's time. He's like, dude, y'all gotta get out of here.
I love. Hurry up, please! It's time. Like it's just such a nice way of trying to get people to leave a bar.
But it's all caps. So
yeah,
he's saying it mad.
Shakespeare does have the only literary reference where it's a male character who conveniently only exists to make some other female character happy. Usually there's this female character who's created to make some male character happy.
Well,
but at the end of Twelfth Night, Shakespeare has Viol's brother show up just so the real brother shows up just so the girl who is in love with Viol pretending to be the brother can have the real brother.
It would be a bummer if it ended otherwise. But there is another Shakespeare reference at the end of this section where they say, "Good night, ladies, good night, sweet ladies, good night, good night."
Yes.
Ophelia says that. And I think this is interesting. Have you ever read Eliot's? There's no reason why you would have. Have you ever read Eliot's essay on Hamlet?
No.
Eliot hates Hamlet. He thinks it sucks.
What?
Eliot in his essay said there's no reason for Hamlet to be behaving this way.
Oh my God.
He's upset that he's very upset that Hamlet just doesn't run out and kill everybody and do the manly thing. Which is ironic considering we're talking about fancy T.S.
Right.
Eliot.
Well, he's very like Hamlet's logic isn't following good logic. He wouldn't behave this way in real life. That's not becoming of a prince of Denmark.
Oh my God.
But I think he references Hamlet like 10 times in this poem, and I think it's like him trying to like, I don't know if he's trying to fix Hamlet, reclaim it, or whether he thinks it's like, or he's just interested in it as a major piece of British culture.
He knows everybody else will get Hamlet references, so that's an easy Easter egg to play around with.
But I was so excited to tell y'all that Eliot said that about Hamlet. It's like, what the fuck?
That's so funny. What a crank.
You know, if you wanted to be a contrarian, the two most popular Shakespeare plays to hate to be contrarian are Hamlet and Romeo and Juliet.
Romeo and Juliet's fine, but Hamlet is really good.
Yeah, it's hard. And especially if your reason is, why is Hamlet acting that way?
I mean, the whole play is about why Hamlet's acting that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, does anyone else have any thoughts on this chess section, or do we want to talk about one fire sermon?
Let's talk about fire sermon.
I like the idea of, someone gives a speech and they're like, afterwards you put a hand on your shoulder, like, that was a fire sermon. And that's what this is. This is the fire sermon.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, this is the Greek myth section, right? The fire sermon. I mean, it starts off yapping about dead nymphs. It ends yapping about nymphs that are no longer virgins. In the middle of it is about Tiresias, who in myth is a sex-changing blind seer. And I want to quote from Eliot here in his notes on the poem, from his letters to Pound. Quote, Tiresias, although a mere spectator and not indeed a character, is yet the most important personage in the poem, uniting all the rest. Just as the one-eyed merchant, seller of currants, melts into the Phoenician sailor, and the latter is not wholly distinct from Ferdinand, Prince of Naples, so all the women are one woman, and the two sexes meet in Tiresias. What Tiresias sees, in fact, is the substance of the poem. End quote. So Tiresias watches a typist at lunchtime have an encounter with a man, presumably their husband, some kind of lover. And it's like he basically has his way with her, and she like very clearly doesn't enjoy it. And it's pretty uncomfortable. It says that this line hits for me. It says, exploring hands encounter no defense. His vanity requires no response and makes a welcome of indifference. And T.S. Eliot does not have very much good writing on like masculinity, but I actually think that is a pretty interesting, that's a pretty interesting read on a type of guy who like doesn't realize that his girlfriend is not into him. You know what I mean? And the girl afterwards is just straight up like, yeah, I'm glad that's over. And, you can read this as more like sexual assaulty or just more like she just doesn't want to be there, but like is not like fighting back. But either way, it's very uncomfortable.
That's extremely, I mean, far be it from me to mix up the new criticism and the old criticism and use a deep reading of the text to make judgments about the author's intent. But there's something psychological going on here in that.
No doubt.
I mean, there's something psychological going on in the whole thing, man. My man has some psychological problems, I think.
Well, especially since this section ends with the Thames daughters mourning the loss of their sexual purity. And one says, another famous line from this poem, I can connect nothing with nothing, because she's so sad that she's not a virgin anymore. So like this whole section here, and I mean, you have a description in this section about Tiresias having like the breasts of a woman, the body of a man. This whole like middle section,
old man with wrinkled dugs.
Yes, that this like whole middle section is very much about like virginity, purity, sex, and its connection to myth. And knowing that this is a subject Eliot is uncomfortable with makes it kind of interesting for me. Though I don't know quite what the takeaway is supposed to be, aside from like he doesn't like sex very much.
Far be it from me to connect a modern whack job with a Victorian.
Oh, we love doing that.
The other day on Twitter, there was this awful thing from the human trafficker who was hiding out in Romania.
Andrew Tate?
Yes, that's him, Andrew Tate, who was explaining how it was gay for a man to have sex with a woman for mutual pleasure.
Yes, I did see that.
Yeah. I mean, like, though conservatives...
more gay than heterosexuality.
Conservatives are obsessed with sex. They always have been. And it's because they're so fucking weird about it that it has to come out in, like, these really twisted ways.
Yeah.
The question is, why is Tiresias, do we think, the one that's, like, viewing this scene? Because I do think Eliot is more sympathetic to this woman than he typically is to, like, women in his writing and other stuff.
Yeah.
And I do wonder, it's like, does he see her as like a woman that wants to be chaste but can't because of the modern age? Like what's happening here?
Well, I mean, Tiresias being the one who's watching to me makes sense because he is both a man and a woman, right?
Right.
So he has like the perspective of both, I guess.
And Tiresias being both a man and a woman, Tiresias perhaps, and not Eliot, is naturally going to feel more sympathetic to a woman in this situation than Eliot might on his
Right.
own. For just to draw reference to your conflict there.
Yeah. Well, then we go
Um,
into the shortest section by far, a section that Eliot wanted to cut from the poem, and Pound said absolutely not. Which one hates to hand it to Ezra Pound, but I really do like Death by Water. If y'all don't mind, I'm just going to read the whole thing of Death by Water because it's not
Yeah,
long.
do it.
yeah, it
Quote,
is real short.
Phlebas the Phoenician, a fortnight dead, forgot the cry of gulls and the deep sea swell and the profit and loss. A current under sea picked his bones and whispers as he rose and fell. He passed the stages of his age and youth, entering the whirlpool. Gentile or Jew, O you who turn the wheel and look to windward, consider Phlebas, and who was once handsome and tall as you. And aside from like him having to do his Gentile or Jew thing there, because which I would maybe just think he was doing a biblical allusion if I didn't know what he thought about Jewish people. This is a very like interesting, like there's this guy who's very handsome and beautiful, and he's a trader in the trader sense, this Phoenician, and he's drowned. He's no longer able to engage. And in this poem, we've already had mention of a guy who was a merchant in the Unreal City, which we know is death, and we've had mention of by the tarot reader that this guy was going to die. And it feels very much to me like this is something, there's something with impermanence, there's something with baptism, and there's kind of something with the market too. Like this guy who is trying to trade, he's beautiful, he's handsome, and he gets sucked down in the currents under the sea. He is in the very middle of this poem, stuck in like the flotsam and jetsam of modernity, and he doesn't make it out the other side. And I think it's very effective.
Which is what we generally take to be the theme of the
Right.
whole poem.
Which is why Pound was right that he shouldn't cut it no matter how short it was.
Exactly. Much as I hate to give Pound credit for anything.
You can be good at one thing and bad at another, I suppose.
Yeah.
Lots of terrible people have been great artists in one way or another. It's true.
Yeah, classic.
It's revelatory. It's revelatory when you find out that somebody was able to write so insightfully about the things that go on in abusive relationships because he was an abuser the whole time.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think that there are a lot of really incredible poems written by really shitty people. Like Philip Larkin really fucking sucked, and he wrote some really good poems. That guy was such an asshole. But like, I think that there is like, I don't know. This is not a theory I really marinated on, but I feel like that poetry is so honest that it almost it's like it clips past all of the bullshit in your brain. Like, and it's like it,
Sure.
Because like he can say that he's I'm conservative, I find this unseemly, Hamlet's stupid, but it's like that you still write this poem about all of this stuff that really doesn't seem to fit your worldview. Because like Jacob, honestly, like I never would have guessed that this guy was a conservative, really, from how he writes and like how he seems to see the world. Like even Proofrock, I feel like, is just like has this sort of insight into the world that Sorry, go ahead.
The new criticism, which is T.S. Eliot's sort of lasting gift to everybody, for good or ill, is often where a lot of left-wing scholarly criticism starts, because you're doing a deep reading of the text in order to say, well, this is the context of what it's really about, regardless of what the author made.
We just a couple weeks ago had Andy Boyd on the show to talk about 3 Scenes in the Life of a Trotskyist, and that is literally a theme in 3 Scenes in the Life of a Trotskyist, is some of these characters in the 1930s in the United States and the sort of the New York literary scene are like pulling from Eliot and Marx, which Eliot would have like wanted to die hearing that, but like that was the truth. People really were doing that.
Yeah.
So you're right. I think that's you're onto something. I mean, I think of about this time last year, we did our episode on Mishima, right? And like he's writing some of the best stuff ever about being like a repressed homosexual. Like I'm like reading that and I'm like, oh my God, this was me growing up.
Many such cases.
But then like he's an actual like dyed in the wool fascist. Like so it's unfortunate, but I also think there is a danger in being like, this guy's someone who's so good can't make something bad, that we fall into the danger of then, because we like something, defending the person.
Right.
At Neil Gaiman or whoever you want to go with.
And I mean, like Neil Gaiman, like American Gods is the book that made me want to be a writer. So like I definitely know about like separating art from artist.
Well, the Sandman, the whole extended story of the Sandman is about a main character trying to learn not to be an abuser in the most simplest way of breaking it down. Yeah. And then but then when you find out what you do about Neil Gaiman, it's fuck. This was all autobiographical.
Yeah, he fucking failed at that one.
Yeah. I never really thought about that before, but when it came out and when I was watching the Netflix version of it, this is just totally about trying not to abuse people anymore.
Yeah, Jesus. Well, I don't have a good segue here, but section 5, what the thunder said. We go from drowning to a horrible land with thunder but no rain. There's fire. It's dry. And it says
the segue here is Thor is a character in Sandman. He's the god of thunder, and he clearly has something to say.
There we go. And it says, here is no water, but only rock and no water, and the sandy road, the road winding above among the mountains, which are mountains of rock without water. And it goes on and on, just telling you there is no water here. Like, do you think there's water? There's not fucking water here. Like, it wants you to know there's not water. And it works really well in a way that, like, I mean, dead mountain, mouth of carious teeth that cannot spit is a very, very good line.
Yeah. I feel like this is the one that most feels like it's about World War I.
Yes.
What is that sound high in the air, murmur of maternal lamentation? Who are those hooded hordes swarming over endless plains, stumbling in cracked earth, ringed by the flat horizon only? What is the city over the mountains? Cracks and reforms and bursts in the violet air, falling towers, Jerusalem, Athens, Alexandria, Vienna, London, unreal. Like, that sounds like war to me.
World War I,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to agree.
And we get the arc of history there, you know? And we also have this moment where there are two men walking together and a third sometimes appears. And this is a double reference, right? One of this, Eliot says he had been reading Ernest Shackleton. If Ernest Shackleton is a guy who went to Antarctica, and he said they started hallucinating guys were walking with them in the wilds of Antarctica. But that's also absolutely a big Jesus appearing on the road to Emmaus vibes. Like the two disciples are walking and Jesus appears and he's walking ahead of them. They don't recognize him, you know. So that also made me think of war. It's guys like in this plane that are hallucinating. Is it a religious thing? Is it them in the wilderness? It's unclear, but they are having this like spiritual moment with this person that they can't identify as man or woman in a brown cloak. And then finally rain comes, and then we're in India.
Yeah. Well, that we're first we do some Italian here.
That's true. Anyone want to take a crack at it?
Poi s'accose nel fuoco che li affina quando fiam uti ciliedon. So I can pronounce Italian.
Oh yeah. Italian listeners.
And then it slides into another language that I can't pronounce.
According to Spotify, there's a whole 8 of you. So rain comes around the banks of the Ganges. We're hearing from D.A. I had to look this up, but that's a reference to the embodiment of thunder from Hindu myth. And then we get Dada, Dayadavam, and Damyata, which means give, sympathize, and control. And he's just sort of doing his like obsession with Sanskrit thing now. As we accelerate towards this end that gets very like whirlwindy of culture.
To foreshadow what's coming after the period of time in which he writes this and set it into the context of what was going on, after World War I, there were 2 wars that people don't talk about as much. there was a horrible war in Turkey and Greece that resulted in the modern state of Turkey coming into being, and a really, really horrible Greek genocide that gets swept under the rug a lot.
Yeah.
Combined with a war against communism in the Soviet Union by the former allies who had just won World War I.
Yeah.
And both of these wars essentially started as soon as World War I was over. So I think it's fair to say that in all this, there's a sort of reference to the idea that peace is kind of a myth and a lie, and there really isn't even any peace. And even when the war stops, we've still got this monsoon.
Yeah. And I mean, fuck, like he's referencing India. What were the British
course,
really
and
turned up the heat in India in between the First and Second World War because they were almost about to lose their colony.
And what's coming in World War II also is a group of German philosophers who listen just a little too much to Schopenhauer's ideas about Hinduism being better than Christianity from a European point of view, and who really, really latched on to the idea that these Brahmins were onto something.
Yeah.
And expressed it in absolutely horrifically secular way.
Right. They just so happen to decide that they are the ones who end up the master race, and not people in India. This very end here is just a they're basically
if you've ever seen 7 Years in Tibet, the reason Brad Pitt is in Tibet was because he was on a mission to make contact with Hindu leaders in India, and he got sidetracked.
Yeah. Well, at this very end, we just get this whirlwind of references in the last few lines. You get London Bridge is falling down, which is, of course, a reference to hit game Death Stranding 2.
Yes, Eliot's a gamer.
Yeah. He was a big Kojima fan. And then you get a reference to quote from Dante's Purgatorio, and then you get a quote from the poem Vigil of Venus, and then you get a quote from Gerard de Naval, and then he says these fragments I've shored against my ruins, and says, and then he references the Spanish tragedy, and then he says the Sanskrit words again, and ends with Shanti, 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 which again
the
Sanskrit.
Spanish tragedy by Thomas Kidd is the plot that Shakespeare swiped Hamlet from.
Yes.
So that's another Shakespeare reference.
Yeah.
But
yes,
indirect.
And Shanti, Shanti, Shanti is a farewell, is like a farewell of peace. Then in Eliot's notes, he says it's a word that means a peace surpassing understanding, but he says it's much deeper than that. So
damn, bro, that's crazy.
He's like, trust me, man, it's deeper.
Yeah.
And this is why he was so excited with about his shallow understanding of Eastern mysticism because of his obsession with death.
Yeah. I know that like a lot of people responded to this poem like, bro, why you gotta be such a fucking downer?
Yeah.
Which I think is very interesting. I feel like that there's like this unimpeachable human desire to constantly be like, stop thinking about stuff that's bad. Like, there was a post that I saw a while ago that I have been thinking about, and somebody in the year of our Lord 2025 on Blue Sky said, I'm strongly against people writing devastatingly depressing books that then get loads of critical acclaim and endorsement for their great writing. If you can produce great writing, maybe don't install harmful mind viruses into everyone who picks up your book. And I was just like, what is the human like impulse to do this? To like be like, what if we get a thought virus from reading a sad poem?
You know, The Guardian literally called it depressing waste paper.
Yeah.
This poem right after it came out. William Carroll Williams has one of my favorite quotes where he says, "You've set back American and British literature by 20 years," which is like, come on. If it, that one's a little intense. But no, I think Aisha, you're onto something. There is this trend that continuously reasserts itself that to like want to be like, don't be a downer. Let's bring positivity. Let's do like sappy YA vibes forever.
But it's the modernism of the way he's a downer too.
Sure.
Because if he had been a romantic downer,
Yeah.
in say the style of Walter Scott writing Bonnie Dundee, where I know this guy is a bad person and bad things are going to happen to him, but isn't this such a rousing story? And wasn't he so heroic just before they ganked him? And that sort of dealing with tragedy would have been looked on very differently than this sort of grubby thing about his personal feelings.
You know, I think it's interesting too. Y'all will like this. Do you know what people started calling themselves in the 1920s, pushing back against this sort of dominant view that this was too depressing? They started calling themselves the Wastelanders. And I was like, fandom has been around forever.
Incredible.
God damn it.
That
like,
rocks.
That's exactly what would happen. That's what would happen now.
Yeah, that rules.
They would call themselves the
That rules. I had the poetry teacher that I had in college when I read this poem, he was this old, like, if you literally can imagine a poetry professor, he was like an old guy who talked like this and had like a white beard and hair, like the platonic ideal of a poetry professor. And we talked about this poem, and then we also talked about Howl, the what's his fuck?
In this moving
Ginsberg,
castle?
the Ginsberg poem.
Makes more sense.
Yeah, the Ginsberg poem, and we were talking, and he was like, so people killed themselves in response to the Wasteland. I'm not sure if anyone killed themselves in response to Howl, but it would be a good one if you're interested.
It makes me think of my favorite poetry teacher in college. First day of class, she walks in and she just puts her hand on the table and says, "Poetry is form." And she's right, but it was so intense.
Yeah.
You gotta love it. Somebody gets a gig at a liberal arts college and they just go all in on it, Gotta love it.
Next, they'll be writing crime fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the Wasteland. That's T.S. Eliot. Do we have any what are our final thoughts here?
It's actually profound, as much as I hate to say it.
Yeah,
He's
sure.
thinking about the fact that, the war is over and things are supposed to be getting better and we're supposed to be enjoying peace, but things still suck.
Yeah. That's crazy how that works. And I mean, like, I really do. I think that, like, after World War I, and then World War II as well, but, like, it started with World War I. I think that there was a big shift in culture. Like, obviously. Like, irony kind of was invented. Like, this sort of not optimism, because, shit has all, like, like the famous the famous tweet, historian voice, "It has always sucked ass to be alive." But, like, I think that there is this, it really just feels different if you, like, read stuff from, like, the Edwardian period, like the pre-war period, and then you read stuff from right after the Great War. It is stark how much more modern the stuff feels to us after
modernism.
Yeah, after the war. Like, how it feels like we are, I think, still in the hangover of World War I and II.
No doubt.
I hate to use a word so loaded with political meaning about someone who wasn't good in their politics, but it's when you think in terms of romanticism and what romanticism meant to the English professors of Victorian England, it was the mode of writing from before their time. It was the standard for poetry. And with The Wasteland, T.S. Eliot is pissing all over romanticism deliberately in the way he is exploring his feelings openly and nakedly and not using romantic imagery at all, but using this very, I don't want to say visceral because we're not actually gutting people, but very physical and earthy imagery that is meant to be direct,
Right.
and to make you feel something and not to make you admire something above you, which was the whole point of romanticism, but rather feel it directly. And it feels modern because he really is trying to break with the past in this huge way and say something. It's okay to be sad without having to pretend you have to be sad about some great tragedy. It's okay to say things are shitty.
Yeah. Like the very first line of the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock is one of my favorite openings of a poem, which is, "Let us go then, you and I, when the evening is spread out against the sky like a patient etherized upon a table." And I think that's just so, like, I don't know, that's just so evocative to me. Poetry's hard to talk about because I'm just like, you hear it?
Right.
Like,
and it's interesting because the dude was 22 when he wrote that, and he's like 30 when he writes The Wasteland. And I think a big part of that is like him growing up with all this like chronic illness and all that. I think that a lot of that comes into it. And I think it's interesting that as he gets success, he is actually like not that he wasn't well off. I mean, as he gets notoriety, as people know who he is, that's when he honestly like kind of starts to drop off and is not able to like produce the same stuff when he feels like he's under this microscope.
Right.
I think that's interesting too.
Yeah.
Well, crazy shit, but that's The Wasteland.
Yeah.
And all we can do is say that we're still kind of wandering around in Eliot's wasteland, like Aisha said.
The long 20th century.
The long 20th century. And it is on us to find our way out and grab the grail, wherever it may be.
And I think it's worth noting that Eliot was living in a world that was still very much trying not to let go of the 19th century.
Yeah.
That he was living in the 1920s just as we're living in the 2020s. I hate to be too historicist, but there are some parallels here.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, yeah. Well, speaking of the 1920s, listeners, next week, we are going to be talking about The Great Gatsby.
Hell yeah, brother.
So be ready for that.
I'm so excited. I fucking love that book. You might have to read it.
So good. Well, we have two things at the end here. First, Chris, tell people one more time where they can find you.
You can find me on Twitter X at the Eclectic Rad, Blue Sky at Eclectic Radical, and pretty much Substack, YouTube, Patreon, all at Eclectic Radical. I try to be noisy.
Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to say is we pointed it up on social media, but Aisha, you just worked on a game that just came out, and I wanted to make sure we mentioned that before we hopped off here.
Yeah, play Pathologic 3 if you like to feel bad like me. Hey, that rhymed. I didn't even see. I'm already so fucking poetry is just washing over me. It's a really great game. I did a bunch of localization editing on it, and it had a really great team, and it is, I think, a fucking achievement, and everybody should play it.
Hell yeah. Well, Lenore not being on, Lenore is always the one who can come up with clever little endings. So I wrote an ending because I cannot do it on the spot like Lenore. And it is this. T.S. Eliot was a man who felt like the world was moving too quickly for poetry to settle. He argued that the transcendental movement in the U.S. and its European counterparts had been hamstrung by the progression of society and the loss of a collective culture. In his mind, Eliot was pulling together frames of references that his audience could exist within. He wanted to impart the feeling of floating in the flotsam of history, half dead, waiting on the future to congeal. He believed strongly in the power of the reader's own personal creativity and ability to interface with poets whose language was always, in his own words, so slippery and imprecise. It can be a hell of a lot to swallow, and a lot of his fear of modernity is based on reactionary impulses, and it's certainly no Cats, but you have to give him credit where it's due. The guy can write a fucking poem. See y'all next week.
See ya.